Good morning, man. Today is March the 13th. So we turn to the book of Proverbs, chapter 13, for God's daily dose of wisdom. And as I was reading through Proverbs 13, verse 12 jumped off the page, and it reads like this: Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Fascinating. Good words. What's he talking about? Well, that word hope, if you dig down into it, that simply means a future expectation. It's not a wish. It's not one of those, I wish something would happen. No, this is a different word. This is not a wish. This is hope. This is an expectation of something in the future. So if you have an expectation of something in the future and it's deferred, it makes the heart sick. I remember a story of a little girl whose daddy was promising to take her to Disneyland. And he said, when this particular date happens, on this particular date, we're going to go to Disneyland. Just you and I, we're going to go to Disneyland. And she got her hopes up. She just was so excited about going to Disneyland. Every time she thought about it, her face would light up, and she had this joyful expectation of going to Disneyland with her dad. Well, that date came, and something happened with his work, and he was not in town that day. He could not take his daughter to Disneyland. And so he tried to explain to his daughter the situation, and she understood. She's very forgiving. And so she said, "No problem, Daddy." And he says, "But in 2 months, on this new date, we're going to go to Disneyland." He said, "A new date." And so she set her heart on that date. And you probably have figured out the story. That date came and it went. And unfortunately, he had something else come up with work and he wasn't able to be there for her. And so he came to her and he explained the situation. And she said, it's okay, Daddy, I understand. And he says, but this date, this new date, in a month, we're going to go to Disneyland. For sure, we're going to go. Nothing's going to stop me. We're going to go to Disneyland on this date. Well, that date came, and unfortunately, something happened, and he wasn't able to take his daughter to Disneyland again. Well, this happened over and over again. So many times that he came to her one day and he says, "Okay, this is the date that we're going to go." And she said, "I don't want to go to Disneyland." He says, "What do you mean? You've always looked forward to going to Disneyland." She goes, "I don't want to go to Disneyland. Disneyland, I don't even think Disneyland exists. It's just, no, I don't want to go to Disneyland." She had been disappointed so many times by her dad that she had just given up all hope of ever going to Disneyland. And I look at this world and I see a similar situation with this young generation, several generations now, that have had the promise of fulfillment and the promise of happiness held out to them by the world in so many different ways. If you just throw yourself into technology, this is going to bring you the happiness that you deserve. This is going to bring you the fulfillment. If you just get really good at these video games, it's going to make you feel so good about yourself. And they realize that didn't happen. That doesn't work. Well, if you just throw yourself into sexuality or your gender, and if you don't feel like you conform to this particular gender that God has given you, then you can be fluid in your gender and you can find your fulfillment and find your identity and find your happiness in some other gender. And they're learning very quickly that that's not true either. And over again, we see that the enemy and the world holds out these different expectations of fulfillment and happiness, and it doesn't work. And the hope that they had makes their heart sick because they haven't been able to find true fulfillment. And yet we contrast that with the desire fulfilled as a tree of life. And in fact, we're talking about the tree of life when we're talking about Jesus Christ himself and how he fulfills that desire that they have in their hearts for happiness, for joy, for being accepted and received. And we saw that this past weekend, how the candidates, as they came through the weekend, they had their lives completely changed. I had a friend of mine go through as a candidate, and man, on the ride home, he just gushed over the blessing that he had received over those 3 days. He wasn't quite sure on Thursday night what I'd gotten him into, as Thursday night candidates often think to themselves. I did. What have I gotten myself into? But Sunday, you could tell God had met him in that place. And he was one of those guys that was looking for fulfillment, looking for identity, looking for a community. And he found it. Thanks to you. Thanks to all the team members, and thanks to God for putting this community together. As we receive these new pescadors into Marco Polo, and as they continue to walk out their fourth day, we need to continue to be in prayer for them, because we know the enemy has designs and a target on them. But I so love this community that puts hands and feet to the abstract concepts that are presented in the Bible, and Jesus comes alive in the lives of the men and women who encounter him at Tres Dias. I absolutely love this community. I love each and every one of you. And I'm so blessed to be a part of this community. The world holds out false hope, and hope deferred makes the heart sick. But desire fulfilled through Christ Jesus is a tree of life. God bless you. Go out and make a difference in someone's life today. I love you.